confirm today that our consultation on unconventional oil and gas will launch on schedule early in the new year. In view of the importance of discussing unconventional oil and gas in the context of both wider energy use and climate change matters, I can also confirm that the launch of the consultation will be coordinated with the publication of our climate change plan and the consultation on Scotland's draft energy strategy. The consultation, which will cover hydraulic fracturing and coal bed methane, will not simply be an opinion poll. I do not believe that would do justice to the broad and complex range of issues that people care about and that need to be debated. The consultation will continue the process of presenting evidence, encouraging discourse, and will allow the public and stakeholders to set out their views. Presiding Officer, our consultation will give everyone who has an interest in this issue an opportunity to express their view. This is what the public and stakeholders expect, and this is what we are delivering. Once the consultation closes and the results have been independently analysed and published, we will make our recommendation on the future of unconventional oil and gas and allow Parliament to vote on it. After which the Scottish Government will come to a considered judgment on the future of unconventional oil and gas in Scotland. I know that everyone in this chamber recognises the different opinions that exist on the development or otherwise of unconventional oil and gas. This Government has maintained a consistently sceptical and precautionary approach throughout. In reaching a final decision as a Government and as a Parliament, it's imperative that every step we take a careful, considered and evidence-based approach, and that we do so alongside an informed public debate. Given the significance of the issue, that is the right and proper way to proceed. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
The Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in his statement. I can only allow around 20 minutes for that, and we are really tight, so if you could please have fairly short questions and answers, please, Minister. And could I ask those who wish to ask questions to press their speak buttons? I call on Alexander Burnett, to be followed by Claudia Beamish.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and can I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement. As an Aberdeenshire MSP, can I firstly congratulate Colin Clark and Ian Taylor on winning their respective council by-elections in Inverurie and Banff last Thursday. And no wonder, with after the raiding of our fossil fuel industry in the North East to fund an economy missing out on fracking. Dr Stuart Patton recently said there are a number of contradictions in the Scottish Government's energy policy. And nowhere was that contradiction more evident than in this morning's Scottish Energy News, where we see the Cabinet Secretary posing with his Minister with a company that has just been awarded £250,000 to improve the technology for onshore fracking. It is simply breathtaking, just hours after this publication, the Minister can come to the Chamber and talk about a clear and consistent approach, and yet still give no timescale for a decision on fracking. Scotland, industry and consumers need direction. So why has the Minister once again failed to deliver, and when will we get a decision?
Before you get up, Minister, can I say to use question time, so I think to be inappropriate. Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. On the issue of the timing, I'm not sure if the member was not listening or reading my statement beforehand, but I did set out that in the new year we're going to launch the consultation, public consultation. This is an extremely important issue for Scotland to debate and get right as a policy area. Unlike the UK Government, we are not taking a gung-ho approach supporting an industry when there are significant concerns among the public and stakeholders as to the success or otherwise of this industry. We feel it is vital, particularly given the concentration of population in the Midland Valley, the main area where this activity may be likely to take place if it were to go ahead, that we listen to the views of communities and indeed wider stakeholders and to take soundings on the strength of the evidence we have presented today. We're not taking it for granted that the research will not be challenged by stakeholders in the industry, and we think it's important to listen, something that perhaps the Conservative Party would do well to do to wider issues, not just on energy policy. And in regards to the support for the oil and gas industry, I would just indicate to Mr Burnett, I hope he studies closely the economic impact study by KPMG. I know the Conservative Party have made great claim about shale gas and other technologies providing an alternative route to safety for the oil and gas industry. I would leave it to Mr Burnett to judge whether those figures that are presented in the KPMG study match up to his expectations.
Claudia Beamish.
Thank you. Can I thank the Minister for prior sight of the statement and the range of reports. It is disappointing that the Scottish Government has not today gone for a public consultation on an outright ban on onshore fracking, especially as the Minister stated on the 6th of October that underground coal gasification would not be part of Scotland's energy mix. As COP22 opens in Marrakesh, does the Minister agree with me that the climate change science is irrefutable, and indeed was before the reports were even commissioned, and that our communities and for our children and grandchildren and for jobs in clean energy now and in the future, we should not lock into another fossil fuel. If he does, why does he not announce a public consultation on an outright ban on fracking, like I have done in my Ban Fracking in Scotland bill?
Paul Wheelhouse.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Well, a number of issues there. Certainly on underground coal gasification. On reviewing the evidence, it was very clear that there were very significant health and safety issues present in that industry. What we have to take account, if we're taking an evidence-based approach to look at the work we have published in advance in our manifesto, stood on a platform where we'd have a consultation following publication of evidence, and we are maintaining our commitment to do exactly that. It's for others, including Claudia Beamish, who I'm sure will be active in participating in the Scottish Government's consultation when it happens in the new year, to submit their views on that research. There may be aspects of it which are supported, there may be aspects of it which are challenged. We think it's right to put the research we've commissioned out there, invite the public to engage in a debate, and to give ultimately a Parliament a vote on the recommended approach we put to Parliament. So we're trying to be inclusive, including all parties in this chamber, to have the opportunity to give their verdict on our recommendation based on the evidence and the consultation, and then we'll take it from there. But I give the member an assurance, certainly on Marrakesh, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform, Rosanna Cunningham, intends to attend the Marrakesh COP and to give Scottish perspective on that. And we take extremely seriously the impact of our actions as a country on global climate emissions. And indeed, the Climate Change Committee's work informs us of what their estimate is as to the climate change impact of this industry. And again, without pressing judgment on those figures, I would invite others to give their comment on the research we published on climate change impact today.
Joan McAlpine, to be followed by Myrtle Fraser.
Officer, is the Minister aware of the recent Stirling University report by Professor Andrew Watterson and William Dinnan on the public health implications of fracking, which noted that the evidence base for robust regulation and good industry practice is currently absent, and it found multiple serious challenges surrounding location, scale, monitoring and data deficits facing regulators overseeing onshore UGE and fracking in the UK?
Paul Wheelhouse.
Well, we're certainly aware, Presiding Officer, of the research that Joan McAlpine refers to, and while Health Protection Scotland have looked on our behalf significantly at the health impact information and published their report today, that is a review of the primary research that's been undertaken by Health Protection Scotland, and I'm aware that the study that is referred to at the University of Stirling has also done a literature review looking at secondary and primary data sources. I would just certainly encourage all those who have a view, whether it's to challenge the information that's been presented by Health Protection Scotland or indeed to supplement it in the case of the work that Joan McAlpine refers to submit that research when the consultation is taken forward in January. There's an opportunity for all stakeholders, regardless of their view, to feed in and make sure we have access to the fullest range of views and information on the subject.
Myrtle Fraser, to be followed by Jackie Bailey.
Thank you. The Minister didn't answer my colleague Alexander Burnett's questions. Let me try again. We know the consultation has been published early in the new year. When will the consultation close, and when will the Scottish Government reach a decision?
Paul Wheelhouse.
Well, I think I did try and answer Alexander Burnett's question in saying that we had set out in the statement the resumption of the consultation. We're looking to do that in the over a sort of a 4-month period initially, to take the findings and produce, obviously, feedback to tie in with, as I said, with the climate change plan and also the energy strategy which is being developed in the course of next year. So we're looking to complete both those documents in the second half of the year, 2017, and take on board our view as we form it on the development or otherwise of onshore oil and gas.
Jackie Bailey, followed by Mark Ruskell.
The Minister will be aware that many people point to the economic benefits of fracking as a justification for doing it. So can I therefore ask the Minister about the assessment of economic impact and draw his attention to Table 1.2 in the paper? The table measures impact over 40 years and notes that spending in Scotland in the central scenario will amount to £55 million per annum. In the low scenario, £12.5 million per annum. Does the Minister therefore believe that these relatively low figures justify a risk to our environment and public health?
Paul Wheelhouse.
As I said in my statement, Presiding Officer, I'm trying to avoid giving a government view on the figures, but I do note, for the record, the figures that Jackie Bailey raises, and I merely put it to stakeholders, including those colleagues across the chamber, to look at the balance in terms of the different factors we've outlined today: the economic impact, the climate change impact, the health impact, the decommissioning impact, transport impact, to ensure that we take a rounded view on the impact across all these issues. That's what government has to do. If we focused on one or other, that would be perhaps a false position. We need to let the people tell us which they think is more important and feed into our consultation in the course of the winter. And so I do recognise the figures are ones which are in the report, but I'm not going to pass judgment on them today, with apologies to Jackie Bailey.
Mark Ruskell, followed by Willie Rennie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Minister, this Parliament has got a legislative duty to scrutinise the climate action plan that your own government is currently producing. That's been delayed. It will now be out in January, as you've indicated, alongside the energy strategy. But what's going to appear under the headline fracking in both of these documents? Will there just be a giant question mark? What are people meant to think of that? Minister, will you at least release the strategic environmental assessment ahead of the public consultation into unconventional gas in January? Will you also commit to including full liability on clean-up costs in any decision-making that you come to?
Paul Wheelhouse.
Well, I certainly recognise the importance of the issue from the point of view of its linkage to our climate change plan, which Rosanna Cunningham is leading for the government, and the energy strategy, which I will be taking forward on behalf of the government, which are going to be published in January as well. People can look at all these documents in the round, so they can look at the consultation on unconventional oil and gas, they can look at the energy strategy, they can look at the climate change plan. And of course, we will, if we're able to do so in terms of the, as I've outlined to Murdo Fraser, in the course of the year, take on board these points in terms of the finalised documents. And I'm sure there will be a very healthy debate around the role of unconventional oil and gas around the consultation itself. I will commit the member, we are looking to try and take on board the findings of that consultation and take that on board in the finalised energy strategy. And I'm sure the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform will also be taking heed of the consultation too.
Willie Rennie, followed by Angus MacDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I also thank the Minister for an advance copy of his statement and the voluminous reports that he has supplied today. I have to admit, I have not read them all yet. But it's pretty clear that the government is on a long journey to saying no to fracking, and it's good news that today it has not given the go-ahead to fracking. But following on from what Murdo Fraser asked, can he just clarify, will it be the end of 2017 when we get a final conclusion and decision by this government on this issue?
Paul Wheelhouse.
It is my intent, as the Minister responsible for the energy strategy, to make sure, if it is at all possible, and I intend this to be the case, that we take on board our view of what we propose to do in relation to unconventional oil and gas in our finalised energy strategy next year. They're being published, the draft is being published in parallel with the climate change plan. Clearly, the debate we're going to have around unconventional oil and gas will have an impact, I'm sure, on our consideration of both key documents. But what I cannot predict is how Parliament will vote. As I say, we're going to put a recommendation to Parliament, and I don't want to prejudge the view of Parliament, clearly, for protocol reasons. But I would anticipate that we'll have a lively debate in Parliament, and we will then have a vote on the position, and Government will reflect on the vote of Parliament at that time. And in order to answer the sedentary question that Mr Rennie has asked, I will intend to do that by the end of 2017.
Angus MacDonald, followed by Maurice Golden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Given the significant local interest, I'm sure the vast majority of my constituents in Falkirk East will welcome the publication of the research reports and the Minister's confirmation that the full public consultation is to go ahead at the turn of the year. Can I ask the Minister, what weighting will the Scottish Government give to the findings of the Public Health Impact Study when it has reviewed the submissions from the consultation prior to making its final decision?
Paul Wheelhouse.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Well, clearly, health impact is an area which there will be a lot of public interest in, and alongside the other issues I've flagged up, and indeed response to Jackie Bailey would make the similar point to Angus MacDonald, who I know has got a very strong interest in this issue from a constituency perspective.